I used to think that a secret was just a structure you had to build carefully. For 6 months, I was the master architect of a double life. Every late-night text was deleted before my finger left the screen. Every cash withdrawal was carefully calculated to look like a business expense. I treated my affair like a blueprint, where every room was soundproof and every exit was hidden from view. When I came home to my wife, Sarah, I wore my innocence like a perfectly tailored suit. I would kiss her cheek, ask about her day, and sit at the dinner table while the ghost of another woman still lingered on my skin. The human mind is remarkably adaptable. It can convince itself that as long as no lines cross, the building will stand forever. I looked at Sarah across the dimly lit living room, watching her read a book, completely oblivious. Or so I thought. In reality, the darkness I was operating in wasn't hiding me. It was just drawing her attention to the small, inconsistent sounds of my footsteps. A lie always makes a noise, no matter how softly you tread. The change didn't happen with an explosion. It happened with a slow, freezing drop in temperature. Sarah stopped asking me why I was late. She stopped calling me during my late-night budget meetings. At first, my arrogance blinded me. I interpreted her silence as acceptance, a sign that my system was working flawlessly. I would come home at midnight, find her asleep, and slide into bed beside her, congratulating myself on my brilliant execution. But if I had been paying attention, I would have heard the structure shifting. The silence in our house wasn't peaceful. It was mechanical. It was the silence of a trap being calibrated. I began to notice small things. A glass left on the counter in a specific position. The car seat shifted forward by 2 inches. My laptop moved slightly on the desk. She wasn't fighting me. While I was busy hiding the digital traces on my phone, she was observing the physical space around me. She was an architect too, and she knew that you don't find a leak by looking at the water. You find it by looking at the erosion of the foundation. My mistake was forgetting that we live in a world where everything speaks, even when the human tongue is silent. I had locked down my phone with biometrics, encrypted my messaging apps, and used a private browser. I thought I was untouchable. What I forgot was the smart home network I had proudly installed a year ago. Sarah didn't hack my phone. She didn't need to. She simply downloaded the server logs from our automated garage door and the smart thermostat. The data was brutal in its precision. The cloud didn't lie. It recorded the exact second my car entered the driveway at 3:14 a.m. on Tuesdays, while my phone location data, which I had shared with her for safety, claimed I was sleeping at a hotel near the conference center, 50 miles away. It recorded the thermostat in the guest room adjusting to my presence when I claimed I hadn't come home at all. She collected the timestamps like a prosecutor building a federal case. Every automated light switch, every garage door activation, every Wi-Fi handshake from my car's dashboard became a digital fingerprint. She didn't look for a smoking gun. She created a mathematical grid of my absence, and the math was undeniable. The confrontation didn't happen in a bedroom with tears and thrown vases. It happened at the dining table on a Friday evening. I walked in, exhausted from another afternoon of fabricated excuses, expecting the usual quiet routine. Instead, the table was set for one. In the center of the dark mahogany surface sat a single, neatly stacked folder of white printer paper. Sarah was standing by the window, her back to me, looking out into the rain. She didn't turn around when I entered. "Sit down," she said, her voice a flat, level plane of cold steel. I opened the folder. Inside were no printed text messages or emotional rants. Column A, my stated locations. Column B, the smart home server timestamps. Column C, the synchronized toll booth receipts from my car's transponder that she had extracted from our joint bank portal. The architecture of my lies was laid out in a series of geometric intersections. The lines crossed perfectly. I felt the air leave my lungs, my throat tightening until it felt like a dry pipe. I tried to speak, to assemble a defense, to find a flaw in the masonry. But there was nothing to say. The blueprint of my betrayal was masterfully drawn, and it bore my own signature. When I looked up from the papers, Sarah was gone. She hadn't even stayed to watch me drown in the evidence. I heard the distant, clean click of the front door closing, followed by the ignition of her car in the driveway. The house returned to that heavy, mechanical silence, but this time, I was the one trapped inside the cage I had constructed. I walked through the empty rooms, my footsteps echoing against the hardwood. The smart lights turned on automatically as I entered the kitchen, tracking my movement with the same cold, unblinking surveillance that had destroyed me. I realized then that my double life wasn't a masterpiece of freedom. It was a prison of my own design. I had traded the deep, structural foundation of a 10-year marriage for the cheap, temporary scaffolding of a secret affair. Now, the scaffolding had collapsed and the foundation was completely hollowed out. I sat down on the floor of the dark living room, surrounded by the invisible lines of a network that knew more about my sins than I did. The architect was left alone in the ruins of his own building, realizing too late that when you design a lie, you are always the one who ends up buried underneath the rubble.